Hi, guys. Sorry, I'm at a little bit of an odd angle here. I had to move the table and everything around because I was getting this, I was like a prism over my face from the light. So apologies for being a minute late as I moved a wall, and luckily it's on a. Anyway, moving the studio around. So glad to be here with you guys. I'm a little scattered apparently, but what else is new? It's Tuesday. It's November. What the heck? How does this happen? I took on a project this morning that was perhaps ill advised. I thought, oh, I have a great idea. Let's do something I never do to show people how to do things. I was like, what? I had this like idea. I just get these like crazy ideas sometimes, right? And I had this idea. I was like, I'm going to like just meal prep an entire week in an hour and a half so that I can show people that you can totally do it. But the thing is, that's not really how I do things. I'm more like, I'm going to do a half an hour here and a half an hour there and another half an hour there. And so, like, yeah, it's an hour and a half, but it's broken up into 3 parts and I can do all my meal prep for the week that way. But I thought, oh, somebody might want to just get it done, right? So let me do it. It's chaos. It was chaos. It was not fun. I didn't enjoy it. I'm probably not going to use the video because I was like, oh, I don't think people should do it this way. At least not, anyway. Because I have a teeny kitchen. And in my little teeny kitchen, like cooking 4 things at the same time, there's not enough prep space for it, right? So then I've got things cooling and it's just chaos. It was an interesting experience though. But now I know like that's not how I'm going to recommend anyone do anything. Now, I certainly, if I had given myself 3 hours to do what I did, it would have been very leisurely and I would have time to like put things away and get things out and do things. But it was like, I mean, I've worked in commercial cooking situations. And so I know how to do the chaos, but like if you don't have to do the chaos, why do you want to do the chaos? I don't think I want to do the chaos. So yeah, so I probably won't do that again. It's not the best choice. Anyway. But what I do with meal prep is more like, okay, what am I going to cook this week? And so on, Monday, I'll make a loaf of the protein bread. And then Monday dinner, I'll cook extra, like a bunch of extra dinners. I'll make like, dinner for 4 days, right? And so now, oh, look, I've got basically half a lunch and dinner or breakfast and dinner done for the week. And then the next day, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to make chicken salad today. And then I'll have chicken salad enough for, 4 or 5 days, unless my boyfriend wants a lot because he likes the chicken salad too. But it's like, so, and it's just like one thing at a time and it doesn't feel like work and it's super easy. But this was chaos today. Chaos. That's all I got. That's all I got for you people. Literal chaos. So it's all done and put away and, learned some things. I made some things I hadn't made before. I made chili. I mean, and I've made chili before, but I haven't made chili in a really long time. So I made chili. That was good. That was pretty easy. And then it was like little things. Like I went to the store this morning and they didn't have the bacon that I'm used to. So I had to get a different kind of bacon, which is like not a big deal. But then the bacon didn't cook in the time I thought it was going to cook in. Yada, yada, yada. And then I do stupid things. Anybody else like me? Stupid things where I'm like, okay, this is going to be easy. I'm going to like put the aluminum foil. I still call it tin foil because my mom called it tin foil, but aluminum foil down in the pan. So when I cook the bacon in the oven, it won't make a mess. But then because I had things all over the counter space, I couldn't bring that pan over to where the sink is to throw it, to deal with it. So then I'm like holding this wobbly, wet, bacon grease filled, floopy vesicle across the kitchen because I can't carry the pan. Poor choices were made. Let's put it that way. Poor choices were made. Anyway, so I will not be doing a book on creating your whole life in 90 minutes anytime soon. All right. Okay, let's look at the questions that have come in while I explain. I'm a mess. Hey, Terry, happy Tuesday back to you. Oh, it's snowy. Linda, it rained today in Berkeley for the first time in like decades. So that was fun. It's sunny now, but it was rainy this morning. Hey, Joanne. Hey, Scott. Good to see ya. Hey, Karen. Happy to make you smile. Chaos is entertaining anyway. Terry says, my meal prep consists of crock potting 5 to 15 pounds of ground beef, then weighing it out 8 ounces, then heating it up for my lunch. That seems pretty simple. All right. Sana says, good evening. Yep, I can't cook anything in advance. Do weekly meal planning for what meals will be made. It helps me stay on budget. Yeah, absolutely. And I do definitely cook in advance, but like I do it in bits and pieces. So like I'll cook a bunch of meat and then I'll, cook something else. So, and I make, I'm just feeding two. I'm feeding me and my boyfriend, but sometimes I'm just feeding me because he wants something different because we eat differently. So, but I'll cook as if I'm cooking for four, right? So I'll make a pot of chili. Today I made a pot of chili. It made 4 servings. If I were serving a bunch of people, it would be 1 meal's worth, but for me, it'll last 4 meals. So I do definitely prep cook. I just don't prep cook everything. Anyway. So that's that. Thanks, Linda. I'm glad I crack you up. If I don't have a sense of humor, I would have lost my mind long ago. So I'm happy to help. So next week's podcast, I talked about the fact that the holidays are coming and it's time to sort of think about what our holiday plans are, both in terms of, I just had a conversation with my mom on Sunday about what the family plan is. The older you get, the more confusing family holidays get. But it's also really, at least in the States, I feel like from Halloween through New Year's, it's sort of just like a bit of chaos. It's the word of chaos is the word of the day. Or it can be this season of eating. And I think it's really important to go into this season knowing how you're going to approach this season. So are you in a deficit? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to maintain your weight? Are you trying to, like, what's your plan going in? Are you going to just be like, I'm going to give myself some leeway, but I'm just going to keep it keto? Or I'm just going to act like there's not a season. There are 2 days. There's Christmas and there's Thanksgiving. And if you're not in the United States, it's not even Thanksgiving, right? And it's just a day. So I'm not going to freak out about it. I'm just going to have that day, but I'm not going to turn it into a season of eating differently, right? So I feel like there are decisions to be made about the upcoming season. So talk to me, guys. Like, what have you decided about what you're going to do? I've been in a bit of a deficit. You guys, it's like I'm like physician, heal thyself. I would like to be 5 pounds less by an event. Not that I care what the scale says, but like I feel like I have a couple of outfits that I would like to be like, they're new and I got them and I love them. And I was like, these will look even better if I lost about 5 more pounds. Just being super honest with you guys. I know like what some people expect their like experts to be like, everything is perfect in my life. No, nothing. No, I'm like superhuman, not in like a Superman way, just like extra human. And so I'm like, by the time like February rolls around, I would like to be down about 5 pounds. So I've got like lots of time, but I was like, maybe I'll just be in a maintenance through the holidays. But I was like, well, it's going to make it really rough. Like it's going to be like an unfortunate January, February situation for me to try. Cause I don't, 5 pounds in even 6 weeks is pretty hard for me. And so I was like, I'll just be in like a subtle, very slight deficit going through the holiday season. So I kind of decided I'm going to keep up my very, very slight deficit, aiming for like a half a pound a week. Not a big deal. But the week of Thanksgiving and the week of Christmas, just kind of going back up to maintenance. So that's my plan about how I'm going to handle this holiday season. So what are your plans around food? Some of you I know are carnivore. Some of you I know are keto. Some of you are ketovore. Some of you are low carb. You all have, your own different choices that you've made and are making along the way. So share with me what you think. Hey, Mary, good to see you. Hey, Kathy. Hey, Tina. I always feel like Miss Nancy. You guys remember Miss Nancy? Are we in the right age group to remember Miss Nancy from Romper Room? That was a TV show when I was a kid, Romper Room. So if you're older than me, maybe your kids watch Romper Room. If you're younger than me, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Yeah. Peggy says, my meal planning is not to forget to take the meat out of the freezer before I go to bed. Yeah, that's an important one. I've learned some quick defrosting methods over the years, which is helpful. And apparently you can cook from frozen in the air fryer, which I've not yet done. But I did get an air fryer, so now I am learning its many, many ways. I have to say, Nisha Salisbury is a big fan of Halloween. Super big fan of Halloween. I'm not so into Halloween. So Kathleen just asked, hope everyone had a fun thing, Halloween rather. I think maybe I'd feel differently if I got any trick-or-treaters. I get 0 trick-or-treaters here. I think mostly when I was a kid, we went house to house, but I think these days, it's kids go to like businesses and get candy and stuff. So it's different, very different. Anyway, Tina says, had blood work done, glucose was 105. Had to ask the doctor if I could get an A1C and fasting insulin. She said she'd order the A1C, but she said it's not recommended to do a fasting insulin and wouldn't order it. I guess I have to purchase my own lab. Yeah, doctors are irritating sometimes. What she means, it's funny because not recommended, it makes it sound like it's a bad idea to do. It's just not on their list of recommended tests is what she means. But yeah, glucose being 105 could mean a lot of different things. It could have been a really random day, a random moment. Like maybe you didn't sleep very well last night and boom, your glucose is normally lower and now it's 105. I think an A1C is certainly called for, and I think that we should be getting at least a yearly or a semi-yearly fasting insulin just to keep an eye on it. Yeah, absolutely. Alana says, I plan on staying in a calorie deficit. The good news, sorry, jumping back. I always get like a sentence into something and then realize, I know, it's the way it goes. You said I'll purchase my own lab. The good news is a fasting insulin, not very expensive. So you can go on and get that. I think from Own Your Labs, there's a combo deal with a fasting insulin and a C-peptide, and it's less than $50. Alana says, I plan on staying in a calorie deficit most days, but on Thanksgiving, I'm going to eat what I want as long as it's keto. Great plan. Nice to have a plan, Alana. Terry says, I'm keto, and at Thanksgiving, I will go to a friend's and eat the meat and plain veggies or salad. Christmas moms, I take my food because they use a lot of sauces and bad stuff. Great. Sounds great. So plans, they've done studies of people who have successfully maintained weight loss. And most of those people, whenever there's a special occasion or a holiday or thing, they have a plan. They go into it with a plan. That's a key thing that successful weight losers do. Karen says, I've been keto for 5 years, and I believe I will treat the holidays as a few days of relaxed eating. I'll bring deviled eggs to any events. Fabulous. Nancy, I'll continue maintenance and add a couple of non-keto dishes for a couple of non-keto family members. Fabulous. One of the things that I have learned in my first few years of keto, I made all the keto things, right? I wanted to try making this and try making that and try making this. And at this point, I know like what my very favorites are, and I don't need that much chaos again, right? Is this just aging? Is this just getting older where you're like, I just don't need the bother? So I'll make a Christmas dinner and a Thanksgiving dinner and just make the things that really like bring it home, like are the things that I really like and make for a really nice dinner. But, I don't need 17 sides. I don't need to do that. And so, yeah, so that is not something that I need. Kate in Salt Lake says to Terry, that's how I do Thanksgiving. Works great. No one complains or makes comments. I'm blessed to have support. Absolutely. It's great to have supportive family members. Alana says Nisha's cornbread dressing is a must, and I love her keto Chex Mix too. Yes, her Chex Mix is delicious. Her cornbread is delicious. I can brag and say that I was staying with her when she came up with that cornbread recipe, so I got to see it live. And it's actually in our holiday cookbook. And the holiday cookbook is to the printers to get everything set up, but I'm not announcing it as ready to sell yet because we want to make sure that everything is rolling smoothly and not, that everything is rolling smoothly before we make a promise. Because when the labs book situation happened and everything got delayed, that was super frustrating for people. So we want to make sure everything's smooth before we announce everything. But we will have the holiday book with Chex Mix, cornbread dressing, and more in it coming soon. And to update you on the labs book, we still look like we're on schedule, that by the end of this week, shipping will begin. Hey, Amy, I'm sorry. It says trying to comment, but being blocked limited. I am not doing it if YouTube is causing you problems. Sorry about that. I'm not seeing it, and I don't have anyone else controlling that. So sorry. Maybe try a different word. There might be a word you're using that's getting blocked. All right. Sometimes certain words trigger YouTube, even if you don't mean them to be triggering to YouTube. I don't know. Kevin says, I haven't made up my mind for sure yet, but I'm thinking about breaking from carnivore on Thanksgiving and Christmas to eat some dressing with the turkey and ham. I know, isn't it crazy when we're like, I'm going to break from my whatever for like one meal, right? I always say, people are like, I'm going to cheat on carnivore and have some green beans or something, right? Like, it's not a big cheat, right? It's yeah. Anyway, but I think it's important to make up your mind and go into it with a clear decision, whether you choose to stay on task or not. I think if you're doing something where you're going to eat something that's really out of the realm of normal, my best advice would be, don't take home leftovers, right? Like, if you're like, well, I'm going to step outside and I'm going to have dressing, which is, very not the way I normally eat, it's going to have very minimal impact, unless you're like truly like allergic to it and you have like a physical reaction, right? It's going to have very little impact on your long-term health success, unless you take the bowl home with you and have it all week, in which case it gets dicey. So I think it's often a great idea when you're going to step outside of your normal boundaries, that make sure that happens outside of your normal abode, right? Outside of your normal circumstances. I think that can make a big difference on keeping things sane. Amy says, I'm really still not sure what to do as far as keto. I've done it to get my A1C to 4.9. Great job. Testing my limits. Now I go up in blood testing, but everything's okay overall. Well, it sounds like you're doing a great thing. All right. Just checking. What else? Cheryl says, first year keto and doing Hanukkah. That should be interesting. Yeah, definitely a thing. So I don't know, Cheryl, if your family's kosher or not kosher. My family, not kosher, very not kosher at all. And so we don't have to worry about mixing the meats and the dairy and things like that. But I do have to say that my celeriac latkes, which are on YouTube, pretty freaking awesome. Pretty good. Really like those. So you might look that up. The recipe is on the YouTube. And so when we would go to not that everyone needs, I don't know. But my mom's side of the family, Jewish. My dad's side of the family, not Jewish, Baptist. So we have kind of a mix of traditions through, Cheryl says not kosher, thank God. People who aren't, this is for some Jewish education for those of you that don't know. The Jews that aren't kosher were like, gosh, that kosher thing seems really hard. So it makes, and then of course the people that are kosher are like, it is totally worth doing this for my religion. So no shade on the kosher people, but just in case you guys didn't spend much time around the Jews, we have our own little, like, oh, what they're doing, that's really challenging situation over there. So anyway. But that made me laugh. But check out my latkes. They're very tasty. Alana says, I just found out I have estrogen dominance and low progesterone. All right, definitely something to look at. That is something that can be sort of an artifact of what's the word I'm looking for? Insulin resistance. I think I could remember that term. But when you have, ongoing insulin resistance, it can really drive up the imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. So you can have normal levels of estrogen and low progesterone, and you still have what they call estrogen dominance, or you could have extra high levels of estrogen and have estrogen dominance. Estrogen dominance just means that your estrogen is dominant, and whereas estrogen and progesterone should be in better balance than they are. It's very common and extremely common with insulin resistance. I don't know if it's for other reasons, but certainly, as that's being fixed through lifestyle, you can look at talking to your OBGYN about proper supplementation of hormones that might help get things in better alignment while you're fixing everything else that will make you feel a lot saner, make you have hair again, make you sleep again, all the good stuff. Definitely something to work on. And, we've all been there. Well, not all of us in that exact way, but we've all been in a place where we're like, oh gosh, we're going to have to work on this. I see. I'm hoping keto can fix this issue, but I don't know if I have any advice or knowledge on the subject. Okay. So, as I said, estrogen dominance can come about in a variety of ways. And it's often metabolically related, but not exclusively. Sometimes when we're in perimenopause, that period before menopause, and menopause is defined as going a year without getting your period. And so perimenopause can be up to a decade before then, when things just go wonky as you're approaching menopause. And so if you just have low progesterone due to imminent menopause, then that is something that would probably need hormone therapy to work on. However, if you're still in a fairly metabolically deranged state, certainly going keto, eating properly, making sure you're getting all your micronutrients and appropriate energy levels, and exercise can help as well. Doing all those things can bring about better hormonal balance for a lot of people. Having too many fat cells, having too much body fat can also induce estrogen dominance. So those are all things that can be improved by going keto, but also due to the fact that as women, we are, if we're in our late 30s to 40s to 50s, we're also approaching menopause or in menopause. And with that, lifestyle doesn't always have complete control about getting those hormones balanced. So that's it's like a wrench in the works. Sana says, been keto for 4 years. It's easy to stay on plan, as we also stick to just a few of our favorite holiday recipes. Haven't dabbled in non-keto items, as I fear it will be downward spiral when it comes to the portion I devour. LOL. Yeah, and that's a decision we all have to make, right? Like, am I 100% keto on a holiday? Am I going to let myself have some XYZ, right? And when I first was keto, I was pretty hardcore. And I was like, I don't even understand why anybody would want anything. And I'm like, like over the years, I've been like, oh, I understand why people would want whatever. Life is long. And what we do any one day isn't what we do every day. And so I no longer have such a strict approach for everybody. But I think for some people, there is no way past the fact that they have to be strict. You have to know. And I've talked about this before, but I kind of look at it like you're walking on a path. And you have to know the path you're walking on. Like, that's just the decisions we make, right? The path we create by rules and boundaries. And you have to know if your path is like at the tippy top of a mountain where, like, if you step off the path in either direction, you're going to like roll down the cliff and die, right? Like, the path is very narrow and you cannot stray. Or if your path is more like a meandering meadow path, right? Like, it's just a little bit like it's just kind of worn down, but there's grass on the sides. It's very flat. If you step off, you can step back on. It's not treacherous at all. You can get on and you get off. And all those paths exist. So it's important that you know which path you're on at this time. Because, if you've ever been on a long hike, you might find that the entire hike is treacherous. And that's just how some people's lives are and how their brains are. And that's just the way it is. And then other people, you're like, well, the start of this hike was very treacherous and it's very mountainous and this very dangerous and loose rocks and danger, danger. But now, like, we've been walking for a long time and we seem to have come into a meadow and things are kind of calmed down. And I feel like I have some leeway, right? You got to know where you are on your path. And once you know that, then you can make intelligent decisions. But don't fool yourself. Don't pretend your path is different than it is. Some people cannot moderate. And if you cannot moderate, it is best to not even go there. But, and then like I said earlier, right? If you're like, I can sort of moderate, but I know that I can't take it home with me, right? So like you make choices to keep it, within reason. All right. Bev says, sister not wanting me to come for Thanksgiving because I won't eat her food. I don't want the sick feeling after eating that type of food again. So sorry, Bev. That sounds really tough. I'm proud of you for trying to set up a situation in which you don't feel sick. And sometimes people aren't the kind of support we had hoped that they would be. And so I'm very sorry that your sister is being that way. And I would wonder if you could maybe have a chat with her well in advance of the holidays and explain that, you just feel sick after you eat these kinds of foods. You have food intolerances. And is there some middle ground you could meet with her? And if not, then you don't have to go spend Thanksgiving with them. You can do a different day. You can get together on a different day. If your loved ones won't support who you need to be, the most important commitment you have is to yourself, not to being mistreated. So I'm sorry that that's what you find yourself in. But good job on at least knowing that you probably shouldn't go unless you can come to some agreement. Amy says, sorry, the rest of my text didn't come through. My A1C has gone up to 5. Yeah, 5 is not high. I would be okay with that. Alana says high levels of estrogen as well. Yeah. So there's nothing, I was on the birth control pill. Okay. Got off in February. Yeah. I would say, your glucose levels are amazing. I don't know if you have high levels of body fat, Elena, or not, but your glucose levels going between 4.9 and 5.0. That's awesome in terms of an A1C. I wouldn't worry about that at all. If you have high estrogen, I would look at what's going on with your hormones. That is what's going on with your hormones, but like, is it a high body fat situation? What's your fasting insulin? Things like that. You're only 25. Okay. So Alana, are you significantly overweight? Or no? Jolene says 39 days of carnivore, taking it one day at a time. I can't make any holiday decisions. I'll most likely stay carnivore. Yeah. Feel good. All right. Thank you. Show Ms. Kim some love by pressing the like button. Thank you so much. I appreciate you for saying that. Now my nose itches. Kevin says, all right, cool. Everyone show the love. Hit the like. All right. Terry says, what is your stance on high fat versus low fat versus moderate fat? I know it's not one size fits all, just curious. My answer is it's not one size fits all. So you got that. It's interesting to watch the pendulum swing in this world. So for a while, when I first got into keto, it was very high fat keto. When I got in, then it went high protein, lower fat keto. Now it seems to be swinging back to higher fat keto. In terms of like what's popular, I would say that when I look at the results of clients and people in general that I watch their progress, the majority of people, so when you first get into keto, I think going moderate-ish fat and the appropriate amount of protein is the way to go. So that is often like sort of a 1-to-1 ratio. It's not magic that you hit those grams exactly. 1-to-1, by the way, means about the same amount of grams of fat and protein. So if your protein goal is 120 grams of protein, you're somewhere around 120 grams of fat. It's not like, oh, I was 119, I broke it, right? It's a ramp. I think that can be a great place to start from. And then you kind of adjust from there. There are some people who higher fat is better for. People who need high ketones, people who have traumatic brain injuries, people who have cognitive decline, some people with cancer, epilepsy. If there's a reason that high ketones would be of benefit, then they're going to want to be on a higher fat approach. And then I find that when people stall on keto after a while, not everyone does, but if they do, most of those people that are stalled, like they lost some weight and then they stopped losing weight and they still have a lot of weight to lose, most of those people do better on what I would call a little bit, not low fat, but lower fat and higher protein. That's like the sweeping generalizations I can make. But it's pretty easy for everybody to test what works for them. I think the given across the board is nobody wants to be deficient in protein. That will cause damage. So how do you know you're not deficient in protein? Well, somewhere between 1.4 and 1.8 grams per kilogram of reference body weight is what everybody pretty much needs to be within range on. So that would be about make sure I do my translation right. 1.4. So that's around 0.65 to 0.8, I think. 1.8. Yeah. So 0.65 to 0.8 grams per pound of reference body weight. And so that's your goal. Just think of that as your goal weight, like what you would weigh if you were not overweight. And so, but for some people, it's of benefit to go all the way up to 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. And that tends to be some people get more increased satiation from that higher amount of protein. But I'm not worried about someone getting too little protein as long as they're in that range, 0.65 to 0.8 grams per pound of reference body weight. That's the range that 99% of people need to be within. If you're, so that's what I would say. It's not to say that you shouldn't be over that, but you shouldn't be under it. Mary says, I did very well with keto unstuck in January and again in July. Life has been insanely tough. Kids with flu, helps out of town. All right, well, stick to maintenance, Mary. Just stick to maintenance. Hang on. Got my hands full. I know what I need to do. I just need to do it. Keto unstuck was a game changer for me. Thank you for giving me the tools to fix the behavior. You're so welcome, Mary. It's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure to be able to help people. That's why I do it. Terry says, people are talking about me. Kim is amazing. Has taught me so much. Down 169 from 338 pounds. Kim is a huge part of my journey. Oh, thanks, guys. You're so sweet. Everybody who wants this kind of success, hit the like button. It'll help. All right. Alana says, I am 5'4", 170 pounds, about 34% body fat. So not super heavy. You have some weight that maybe you could lose, but not super heavy. So absolutely. Working on some weight loss is going to be beneficial potentially to bring that estrogen dominance down, but you might also need to do some recalibrating of your hormones. My guess is you might have like something like PCOS, which can cause that estrogen dominance. So I might, next time you get blood work done, get your fasting insulin tested and your C-peptide and see what those levels are, because my guess is you probably have some insulin resistance. Tina says, sorry, is fasting insulin different than fasting glucose? Yes, it is. So fasting insulin tests how much insulin is in your body at the time of the test. Fasting glucose tests how much glucose is in your bloodstream. So different. totally different hormones. Well, but they're related in that if you have chronically high glucose, it's going to raise your insulin. But in fact, your insulin system tends to show signs of deterioration well before your glucose system shows signs of deterioration, which means that you might have hyperinsulinemia, chronically high insulin, without yet having hyperglycemia, high glucose. So, yeah, so they're different tests. You can test your glucose at home with a glucometer. You cannot test your insulin at home. It has to be done in a lab. Sharon, I've lost 120 pounds, struggling to lose the last 20. Totally know what you're talking about. Hiked the Narrows last week. 3 years keto. Yep. Or it's going to become like what we say, right? I'm on a narrow path this week. Glad it. Sometimes in that journey to the last 20 pounds, because I feel you on that. They can be just the biggest struggle of struggles. But the good news is you're healthy. This part is just aesthetic, so it can take as long as it needs to take. Serena says, I have heard it recommended to try a change for at least 30 days, but 90 is optimal to see how your body responds. How do you feel about that? I would agree with that, Serena. I would say if you're making a couple of things, if you're making a change to see like, oh, does this work better than that? I would say that 30 days is probably minimal. Yeah. 90 days is probably a little better, but it also depends, right? So say maybe you're trying, it depends like how big a change, right? So let's say maybe you're trying dairy free. You're going to take dairy out of your diet. So I think 30 days is probably enough time to get it out of your diet. And then you might want to try and reintroduce it. So you're going to go 30 days without any dairy. Then you're going to slowly reintroduce it like over a week. And then you're going to see how your body feels and then know if you're going to have to take it out again, right? So it's not just like on off switches. You kind of have to figure how you're reintroducing things. Because often when you take something out of your diet, you don't necessarily notice the improvement until you try to bring it back in. And so that's sometimes a necessary thing. The other thing is change one thing at a time. Because if you change multiple things simultaneously, it's very challenging to know what was what and what did what. So, I mean, if you know that if you're like, no, I know that like going for a walk is good, there's no downside. Yes, you can go for a walk and do the other thing at the same time. But if you're like really trying to science it, you're really trying to like test what is happening. You don't want to have too many variables being tested simultaneously because then you won't know which did what. Robin asks, would age decrease your need for protein? I'm 74. Actually, age increases your need for protein because as we age, we develop something called anabolic resistance. And what that basically means, I'm just going to use an analogy here. It's not actually scientifically true, but it's the best explanation. You can think of it as we get older, our body doesn't build things as well. And so we need more bricks, right? If you think about it, like we're trying to build a wall, but we keep losing the bricks. We don't know where did you put the brick, right? It's like, how things just go missing. As we get older, we need a spare bricks because we have lost half of them. And so we're trying to build this wall. And if we don't have enough bricks coming in to build the wall with, the wall is going to be insufficient. It's going to have holes in it. And so as we get older, we're anabolically resistant. Our body doesn't do as well with protein. And many people will think, oh, that means I shouldn't have as much. No. We aren't as efficient with it. We need extra. We need extra bricks. We need extra protein. So older people actually need more protein than younger people. That I know is contrary to what a lot of people have thought over the years, but it is in fact true. But that range I gave includes older people. So if you're older and you're over, 1.4 is kind of the bottom. I'm more comfortable at the like 1.5, 1.6, 1.8, a little higher level, but they have done studies on seniors and found that, 1.4 is probably minimally sufficient for what you need. And so, yeah, so age, in fact, increases rather than decreases. Someone in their 20s can get away with eating less protein than that range I gave because their body is just pumped full of anabolic hormones, estrogen, testosterone. Those hormones will actually do a lot of the work to create more muscle and maintain muscle mass. And so while we're full of those growth-based hormones, we can get away with less. But as we are older, we need to make sure we work on getting a good amount of protein in. So making sure we're in that range. So what does our body use protein for? Might be a question some of you have. And there are a variety of things we use protein for. It's probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things we can do is to get sufficient amounts of protein in our diet. We need protein for our hormones to work, for our hormones to talk to each other, for that communication to go on within our body. We need protein to build every cell. Every cell in our body requires it. So rebuilding, renewal, rejuvenation, we need it for muscle growth. We need it for bone growth. We need it for bone and muscle maintenance, because when I say growth, we have to think we're constantly breaking down on some level. So we constantly need to be replenishing. So maintenance and growth of muscle and bone. Osteoporosis, anyone? Yeah. Bone is 50% protein. So if you're low on protein, you're going to suffer from those kinds of issues. Then we've got hair, skin, and nails, the health of those things for, they're more vanity pieces, but they matter for our joints and ligaments to work well, for us to not become sarcopenic, which is age-related loss of strength and muscle mass. We need an appropriate amount of protein. So protein is super important for us. Getting that, when I talk about that like amount, right? For me, I'm like 5'9". Putting me in that range of protein means that I'm just like somewhere between like 120 and 100 and hold on. I might even be overestimating. Hold on. Yeah, 100 grams to like 120 grams is like my minimal amount of need. I aim for more than that, like 140 to 150 grams, because I really do better around the 1 gram per pound of reference body weight. But, if I'm a little bit under that, that's fine. But, that's not a lot of protein it's just a habit, right? Once upon a time, I was not in the habit of eating as much protein as I eat now. But once you get in the habit of it, it's really very easy. So we need the protein. Helene says, I've added 28 grams of collagen to my morning coffee to get my protein in. Now I'm finally at 90 to 100 grams a day. Helene, I have some unfortunate news for you. Well, collagen is in fact protein. It is an incomplete protein. So while it can do some things, it can help with hair, skin, and nails. It can help with certain parts of your amino acid needs, but because it's an incomplete protein, it's not contributing to muscle mass. It's kind of considered not protein in terms of helping with any muscle issues. So instead of adding, and so I'm not against collagen protein at all. It rounds out. So just so you know, protein is a group term for something called amino acids. There are 20 amino acids altogether, 9 of which are called essential amino acids. And when something contains all 9 essential amino acids, we consider it a complete protein. So it's not that the collagen doesn't kind of like contribute to our protein needs, but it's not your best choice. So if you want to just put something in your coffee, put a whey or casein or egg protein. Whey, casein, egg protein, those whey and casein are types of dairy protein. And like keto chow is a combination of whey and casein. So a dairy protein or an egg protein are the best of the protein powders. Now, whole food is better. But if you're like, hey, I want a powder that I can put in my coffee, get a complete protein for your coffee. Nancy, does collagen help our bones? I mean, it probably is a contributor, but I would always say collagen should be an addition to your protein needs. So earlier when I said, the range of protein you want to make sure you're at least within, if you want to add collagen on top of that, so like for me, my bare minimum do not pass go amount is like 100 grams of protein. I would want to make sure that I'm getting that 100 grams of protein from complete whole animal-based sources of good quality protein before I even thought about counting collagen protein in my protein counts, if that makes sense. So I get at least that much every day. So I'm not really worried about it. And so if I wanted to add collagen to that, great. But if I was like, oh, I'm really full, and so I'm adding collagen protein, and now my total protein amount is well below what I need it to be, then I would say don't let collagen displace better sources of protein. And so yeah. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Funny. 57-year-old female carnivore, 2 years, lots of positive energy, yet zero weight loss yet. Any thoughts? So I would start tracking your macros. I'm going to guess that might be Sammy. And see what you're eating. I have had carnivore clients who were overeating. It's easy to overeat. If left to my own devices, would overeat all the time because I love food. So I would start tracking what you're eating in terms of macros and then evaluate it. And from there, you can determine if maybe a change is needed. Maybe some leaner meat choices, maybe less butter. There just might be some changes that need to be made. Or you can confirm, no, I'm eating what should be an appropriate amount for my body. So what else is going on there? So that would be my recommendation. All right, let's see if I missed anything. Mary asked, how do you know what your reference body weight should be? I mean, so there are calculations you can do. If you know your body composition, you can help with that. I think more than anything else, though, it doesn't have to be 100% exactly precise. It could literally be just, okay, I'm going to say this. If you're really far from it, so let's say you're 300 pounds and you're 5'4", right? You know that you are quite a bit of weight away from what would be an appropriate weight for you, right? And in that case, you can just pick. And if you're like, I have no freaking idea what it should be, then there are charts that will tell you, or you can use this calculation, which is basically 5 pounds per inch over 5 feet. So 100 pounds at 5 feet. So if you're 5'4", that's 120 pounds. Now, I find that a little lighter than most people want to be at 5'4", but it gets you in the ballpark. So really all you got to be is in the ballpark. Now, if you're 5'4" and you currently weigh 155 pounds and you're like, I don't know what it is, but I'm not quite there yet. Well, then you know a little better about like how much excess weight you really have. And if you really want to dial it in, then you get like a DEXA scan. And if you get a DEXA scan, it'll tell you how many pounds of body fat you have and how many pounds of lean mass you have. And so from there, you can say, okay, well, I currently have 100 pounds of body fat and I have 40 pounds of lean mass. I have 100 pounds of lean mass and 40 pounds of body fat. I was like, wait, that's backwards. So that would be, hold on, I'm going to do the math. So that person would have about 30% body fat, and which is a healthy amount of body fat for an adult person to have. It's a little bit higher than, say, a bikini competitor would have for sure, but it's not an amount of body fat that's way out of the realm of healthy. Especially if you're not, in your early 20s, if you're like in your 40s or 50s. And so from there, you are making more aesthetic decisions. They've studied it and they found, if you're in the 30 or low 30s, high 20s, there's not a huge difference in terms of health outcomes there, but you probably can look at yourself and say, I really think 5 more pounds of fat loss would make a big difference in terms of how I look. And so I want to maintain the amount of lean body mass I have and lose another 5 pounds of body fat, right? So from there, you're kind of tweaking. But for like general calculations, you're just trying to get in the ballpark. Hopefully, does that answer your question, Mary? Hold on. Robin says, I try to eat at 10 and 4, but my morning blood sugar continues to rise until I eat. So I thought about a butter coffee when I get up, but that would make me not fasted. So, I mean, maybe you might actually want to eat earlier. So there does seem to be some indication that eating your first meal a little earlier can be of benefit. And so maybe at 8 or 9, you want to have your breakfast instead of waiting until 10. I don't know that I would really worry about it. I would just try and do what seems to suit your body best. What may be happening is you may be somebody that just has fairly high cortisol. And being in that higher cortisol state can cause your blood sugar to continue to rise. And eating something can bring in just a little bit of insulin, which is going to oppose the cortisol and bring your blood sugar into better balance. So I would just try eating breakfast a little earlier. Sammy says to Terry, oh, I've been tracking the last 6 months. Okay, good. Currently upping the fat. Sammy, what are your macros? What have you been eating? You said you're thinking that maybe you were under eating. So she asked what my method was. So, I mean, my method is start tracking. And then if you're losing weight, not tracking, I don't think you should start tracking. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it's stuck and things aren't going the way you want them to, and you're not seeing the results you want, I would say start tracking try to be accurate about it. Try to be looking at what am I eating, and then get an average for a couple of weeks. Look at those macros. First, make sure your protein is appropriate in that range that we talked about. And then from there, like how much fat are you eating? So like, what are your daily calories? Do they seem appropriate for your body or not? And then tweaking from there. So was eating around 600 calories, 1-to-1, 1600 calories, 1-to-1 fat, protein, OMAD. So the first thing I would say is that not everyone does great OMAD, and it tends to not work as well for fat loss for a lot of people. So I would actually divide up your meals and have 2 meals rather than 1. And then there are a variety of reasons for that, but I will spare you the details and just say I would actually try for 2 meals a day, giving yourself about a minimum of 4 to 5 hour window between them. So breaking it up into 2 distinct meals. And then I would say, like, what is your activity level like? Are you a fairly active person? Because if you're fairly overweight and fairly active and eating 600 calories and fairly tall, then that I would expect fat loss there. But like I can tell you in the body I'm currently in, where, I'm at a healthy weight, but still have a few pounds that I would like to lose. I might be losing at 1600, but very, very, very slowly. So, my maintenance seems to hover around, if I'm sedentary, around 1800 calories, right? So, if I were littler, because I'm 5'9", if I have clients who are 5'4", and their maintenance is around 1600 calories. So, based on your body and what your needs are, I would start investigating. It sounds like your maintenance might be 1600 calories. And so yeah. Okay. So, and then you've only got 30 to 35 pounds to lose. So you're not super overweight, right? And so I might play with that a bit. And, you can go through a period of time of eating more, doing essentially what's a reverse diet. I did that. It was very helpful. So if you're at 1600, try going up to 1650, trying going up to 17, 18, just keep creeping it up for a little while and just making sure you're not gaining weight as you're doing that. See what your body tolerates on the upper end. and then kind of plateau there and then bring it back down and see if you start losing weight then. Sometimes we go up, we get a new baseline a little bit higher, and then we come back down and then we'll start seeing weight loss. But you may need to go a little lower, right? So you're going to have to feel that out. Hold on, guys. I've got the tickle. Okay, last comment. Oh, I'm going to cough. Hold on. Try not to cough in my earbud. Karen, hold on. My allergies have given me this throat tickle. Karen says, we talked several months ago out of a stall on OMAD, and I suggested some reverse dieting. I did that for 2 months. And at the beginning of October, went back, and the weight is now coming off. I now practice at my maintenance level. Thank you for your advice. Oh, great. I'm so happy to hear that. All right. Last question before we wrap it up, because I need to cough harder. Marilyn says, what do I think about the quality of Equip beef protein in regards to collagen? Does it have enough amino acids not found in collagen? Equip protein powder, I contacted the company. It's 25% collagen protein, 75% complete protein profile. So I think of Equip as a fine protein powder because it's 75% complete protein and only some of it is collagen. So you could count it as 3/4 good collagen, complete protein. So basically you could just add an extra quarter of a scoop, kind of round it out there. So I like it. I think it makes good panna cotta because that extra collagen actually sets it up very nicely. But it's because it's majority of it is a complete protein. It's on my okay list. So, all right, guys, we're going to call it a night. See you next week. Bye-bye.